Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Unable really to switch.
Yeah.
Welcome, everyone, to the Eden Prairie Planning Commission. The date is Monday, August 13th. Will everyone please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you very much. You may be seated.
John, let's get to go middle because he's in the middle.
The first item of tonight's agenda is the actual approval of the agenda. Does anyone have any changes that they'd like to make?
Move for approval.
Okay. Motion second. All in favor say aye. Aye. Moving on is the approval for the minutes for the July 23rd, 2012 meeting. Does anyone have any changes that they'd like to make? If not, I will entertain a motion for that as well.
Move to approve.
Second?
A motion and second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any abstentions?
Abstain.
Okay. All right. Moving on is will be the public hearings for tonight. The first item of business is the woods at Bryant Lake. Location, this is a continued item, by the way. The location of the project is 6251 and 6263 Beach Road. The request is for planned unit development concept review on 6.95 acres. A planned unit district review with waivers on 6.95 acres is zoning district change from rural to R1-22 on 6.95 acres, and a preliminary plat on 6.9 acres in 2 5 lots. Mr. Franzen, correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe the applicant has withdrawn that project.
No, I actually have some late-breaking news.
You do? Okay, very good. Please inform us.
We do not have a request for withdrawal. We have a request for a 2-week continuance to the August 27th, 2012 Planning Commission meeting.
August 27th, okay?
So your motion would be move to continue the public hearing to August 27th, 2012.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
move to close the public? No. Move to continue the Woods at Bryant Lake project to the August 27th, 2012 Planning Commission meeting.
Before I hear a second, I know that we had other information. I just want to make sure all the commissioners are comfortable with this, that there weren't any kind of issues. It should be pretty straightforward, but just making sure. Okay. With that being said, I need a second. Motion and second. All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Okay, we'll move on to August 27th. The next one would be MAC Development Parcels. The request, the location of the project is Flying Cloud Airport. The request is for a guide plan amendment to add airport, commercial, and airport offices as an implementation tool for airport land use. The second one was a zoning district amendment to Chapter 11 to add airport, commercial, and airport offices as a zoning district. I did read the staff report. Mr. Franzen, do you want to kind of fill us in on next steps of that as well?
Yes. Actually, your action tonight is to cancel the public hearing.
Okay.
We put a notice out in the paper. We did not send notices out to the residents. After it was published in the paper, we found another section in our comprehensive plan, Chapter 5, which has airport safety zones A, B, and C. And A is a no-build zone, so you can't really take a zoning action to consider building something in that zone. Since the guide plan was adopted, the city went through a process with MAC and adjoining cities about creating a joint airport zoning board. And as part of that process, the size of the safety zones change. So the A zone gets smaller, the B zone gets larger. So the development sites, which are a couple of these, would fall into the new B zone. So you amend Chapter 5 to say on the basis of this state model ordinance or modifying the safety zones, then we'll have the last correct action we have to have in our legal notice.
So can you please give us the request of what the city is asking us to do tonight?
The action for the Planning Commission is simply move to cancel the public hearing.
Okay.
Once it's canceled, then we're free to publish this for the September 10th Planning Commission meeting.
Very good. Okay. Anybody have any questions, Commissioners? Okay. If not, I'll entertain a motion.
Mr. Chairman, move to cancel the public hearing of the MAC development parcels.
Second.
Motion second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay. Moving on would be variance 2012-04. Location of the project is 6709 Boyd Avenue. The request is to permit a third stall a garage addition with a side yard setback of 5 feet. City code requires a 10-foot minimum setback, side yard setback in the R1-13.5 zoning district. With that being said, will the proponent of the project please come forward? State your name, spell your last name for city record. Give us your address and tell us a little bit about the project, please.
Sure. My name is Steve Milbrath, Milbrath, and I'm the owner at 6709 Boyd Avenue.
Okay.
And,
Steve, if you can grab that microphone and speak right into it, that would be great.
Is that better?
I think so, yeah.
Okay.
Thanks.
Okay. I have applied for a variance to gain relief on the 10-foot setback from the property line to build a third stall garage on my property. And I think I'm here when the home was originally built in 1987. The house side of the property was built at 17 feet. And had it been fully justified to the 10-foot setback code, that 7 feet would have been on the garage side, and I don't believe I would have had to have applied for the variance in the first place. I have looked at alternatives in constructing a detached garage in the backyard. I've submitted information into the council such that there's a big hill in the back of the yard, so it would limit the practical placement of that detached garage. Also, the driveway that would extend back to that structure, I would have to remove over 20 trees to accommodate that driveway. I also looked at an alternative of building a double deep or a tandem garage out towards the back of the property, but I have living space, utility room, laundry room, and a bathroom immediately behind my existing garage. And so in my mind, I don't have a practical alternative other than to apply for this variance. I believe the third stall garage is well within the character of the neighborhood. There are 8 homes in our neighborhood that already have existing 3-car garages. And I think most importantly, I've talked about this project with my immediate neighbors, and they have either signed or initialed their consent for this project, and that is shown in Figure 9 of the report that I handed into the Commission.
Okay. Thank you very much. We'll move to staff report. If we have any questions, we'll let you know. Okay. Thanks again. Mr. Francis, you want to take us through the staff report, please?
Mr. Chairman, this is a variance that meets the 3-part test for reasonable use, unique circumstances, and neighborhood character. And the staff recommendation is for the Commission to approve Final Order 2012-04 based upon the findings that are included with the final order.
Okay. Thank you very much. Seeing that this is an open hearing, is there anyone out in the audience that has any comments or concerns? Yes, please come forward. State your name, spell your last name for us, please.
My name is Sean Cheeseman, Cheesman. Steve, I'm sorry I'm here to say I'm not approving it. I want to give you 3 reasons why we shouldn't approve this. Several years ago, my immediate neighbors, Mike and Leslie Gorgian, came to this council looking for approval for a similar type of variance. At that point in time, looked at the options. I came before the council and talked as well, and the plan as they proposed with the variance wasn't approved. But at the end of the day, they ended up putting a 3rd-car garage on by modifying their plan. They made it narrower than what they wanted to do in the first place. So they came up with an option to still comply with the setbacks, but it didn't meet what they really wanted to do with a wide garage. Similarly, a neighbor across the street saw what happened with that. They were interested in doing a 3rd-car garage, saw that a variance hadn't been granted to Mike and Leslie, so the garage that they wanted to add to their home would have been on the inside of the setback requirements as well. So what they did is, instead of coming to the Planning Commission asking for a waiver, they went ahead and bought several feet of land from the next door neighbor. So now they have a very odd-shaped lot, but the lot does conform with the requirements of the setback. The third thing is, last year there was a proposal for a development at Grand Haven at Marsh Cove. That is right behind us off of Boyd Avenue. When that proposal came to this commission, there was 40 variances requested, and many of those variances in that development were on side setbacks. Unfortunately, this commission approved that plan, but it did go to the city council. At that point in time, my wife and I got together with many of our neighbors, went to the city council, and basically came and said, we want a development that fits in with the rest of the neighborhood. And there shouldn't be any reason, when you're starting, especially with a new development, They have 40 setbacks, and there shouldn't be any reason why you have to have setbacks, especially in the side yards. When we have a development like this, it's nice to have space between the homes. It's nice to not have that encroachment. So the end result with with the city council was that the developer went back, prepared a plan that required no waivers, no variances on any of the side setbacks. So with those three reasons, I have a neighbor that adjusted a plan even though they had requested. I had a neighbor that bought property from a next door neighbor in order to comply, and the fact that a development that was proposed and approved by the city council that didn't require any setbacks, I don't think that we should have one here in this neighborhood. We have precedent. We should be able to say that we can be consistent in the way that we're applying this.
Okay, thank you very much for your comments. I appreciate it. Is there anybody else out in the audience that has any comments or concerns about this project? Not seeing any commissioner members. Do you have any comments at all, concerns?
I have a question.
Yes.
Maybe I missed it. Where do you live in relation to the property? How far up block? Could you just tell me how many houses are between you guys?
Oh, I don't know. 15?
Okay.
On the map that you have, it seems to be 27.
I believe I have your address as 6702. Is that correct?
6782.
6782.
Oh, I see the last name there. Okay. And then I had another
Yes, sir, please,
point
go
for
ahead.
Mr. Franzen. Could you just talk briefly, if you could, just about the change in the standard for variances? At this point, is it more relaxed than it was in the past after the legislation? I know at one point it was like you can't do anything, and then they moved, and I think now maybe it's more relaxed than it was.
The state of Minnesota redefined what the criteria would be for hardship. And I think they made it clearer, and it gave cities more things to consider in the review of each individual variance request. And each variance is going to be a little bit different in the nature of the variance. The circumstances are going to be different. I don't believe that there are any particular precedents that are set with variances because each situation is completely different. So my suggestion here is you need to take a look at the facts that are presented and talk about whether or not you feel that they're meeting the test. Is it reasonable to have a third stall garage? Are there unique circumstances to this property? And does it fit in with the character of the neighborhood? So I would say it's probably clearer, and I would say it's probably easier for cities and counties to be able to do this.
Okay. Thank you.
Commissioners, yes, go ahead, Jerry.
Yes, I have a question for the project proponent. When you mentioned looking at a tandem garage, did you look at a one-stall tandem garage or strictly just the two-stall tandem garage? And the one-stall just being kind of a continuation of the sort of three-quarter stall that you have right now on the north side of your garage?
Yeah, the one stall, it's an L-shaped garage, but that's really not wide enough to accommodate a vehicle, so I would have to
it looks like it's 10 feet wide, so it's wide enough to drive a vehicle through there.
There's also a stairwell that leads from my garage floor up to the first level of the home that runs horizontally to the direction of the extension, and so then the opening into the house would have to be completely redesigned.
Okay. That stairwell is in that
Yes, sir.
that 10-foot wide space. It's not in the main part of
That's
the garage?
correct. It's in that. Yes, sir. Yes.
Okay. The other question I've got is, when you look at this area, there are other lots where the neighboring houses, the garages, abut the same property line. And if those houses wanted to add a third-car garage, we could potentially have neighboring houses asking for similar kinds of variances, and which could result in only a 10-foot space between houses, garages. And I don't know. I'm uncomfortable with that. We're setting a precedent that says that we could give everybody a 10-foot setback versus just kind of the one situation.
In my particular case, the property just on the north of me, the Bernstein property, that's not their garage side, so my garage butts up to their house.
Yeah, I know specifically on yours, it looks okay, but, we have 30-some other houses here, and if we do this for one, I think we may be setting a precedent that we need to be open to doing it for a whole lot of other people. And there's a lot of other situations where if we were to allow a 5-foot setback for one garage, and then the neighbors wanted to do the same thing, we'd probably have to say no, because it would get way too close together, and I don't know that that's really fair.
Yeah, I guess my comment to that would be, we try to judge these on individual basis, and I don't really see this any different than someone being on Duck Lake or some of the other lakes where they wanted to put in a pool and cut into certain environmental zones or whatever, and we approve those. And if we're going down the road, well, what if the neighbor does, or what if that neighbor does, and all of a sudden it starts shrinking everything, kind of. I understand. I can tell you from my perspective, when I looked at this and read through it, it was kind of a no-brainer for me to move forward with it. Mm-hmm. My perspective, just going off of what's in the staff report and the letters I've read and from the paperwork that Steve submitted.
Quite honestly, that's my first reaction, too, is just go ahead with it. But then
Right.
when I look at the area, and I look at your lot, sir, and I look at all the other lots, there's not much difference. I don't really see your lot as being a unique lot compared to all the other lots that are there. And so it's hard for me to say that there's a unique consideration that requires a variance for your garage, that it's kind of what you bought, and there's constraints on what you purchase.
Okay. Commissioners, what other? Yes, sir.
How much space is between the stalls, or in the picture there?
I'm sorry, I don't understand your question,
Well,
sir.
you have a rendering on.
And in fact, you can put that in between those two microphones over on that other side, and there's a camera up above that should be able to pick it up, and you can point
Your
that out.
third to last page. Maybe that's necessary. I'm just wondering if there's a way where you could get.
Is this the view you're...
You're referring to the
No,
physical photo
no,
or draft?
Yeah, this one.
The drawing.
No, there's no scale, so I didn't know what.
You're talking about, you want to know what the space is in between the third stall and the
Yeah, it's
double
got to
stall
be, what,
garage?
3-4 feet, something like that you're proposing? I'm thinking of a regular garage. I'm just going off of.
Looking at this line right here, sir?
The line's in between, that space that's in between the two
Do
stalls.
you have some sort of column there or something? Or
That is the existing structure
Okay.
right there, and so the proposal
Got it.
starts right at this line right
Just
here.
the-
This line right here is the existing.
Okay, so
outside
you
part of the
have a fair amount of room to the left of your car that's on the left in your garage? Like some
Yes,
extra space there?
approximately 2.5 to 3 feet. Yes.
Okay.
This distance right here?
That's where all the footings for the houses and everything, right there. That's
Yeah, I
the
just
end
don't
of
know
it.
if
Right.
I'm thinking of my house, I don't know if I have as much space there as maybe everybody else does.
Right.
I'm thinking if we could just squeeze her on
I
over a
understand.
little, maybe it would be.
Commissioners, what else?
I had a question. I guess, as was stated, the 3 points, I'm curious, I don't know, Mr. Franzen, do you know why that initial variance was not approved?
No, I don't.
Do you by chance know why it wasn't approved?
As far as my neighbors,
Can you please come forward and speak in the microphone? Thank you.
it's a similar type of discussion as what we're having here. They wanted to put in a certain size of garage. It would have required encroachment on 10 feet, which was on their side. There's 15 feet on the other neighbor's side. And, several of us came and had the discussion that, we like having 25 feet between the house, and it's precedent setting if you allow that. I know personally, I look at a third car stall from my house, and it would encroach, and so I have never, looked to go beyond that because I wouldn't be able to go within that variance. And if you approve this, you can guarantee that I will be back. So go back to your question or your concern, are you opening it up? Then I'd say absolutely. I think you're opening it up for anybody else to come in and say, yes, it's approved once, then you need to approve it for me as well.
Can I ask you a question? Would you, if we do approve this tonight, are you interested in putting in third stall garage?
It's crossed my mind, but I've put it on the back burner because I knew it wouldn't.
And the only thing that's kept you from doing is a variance.
Yeah. Because if I'd been within, if I would had to stay within the variance, it wouldn't have been functional, wouldn't have been feasible from a size perspective. If I can get something outside the variance, then I could have done something otherwise.
Just one more question. It does seem, though, that you're saying that if these kinds of changes were to take place, if a lot of them were to take place, it could really begin to change the character of the neighborhood.
Right, exactly.
Could you tell us a little more about that?
Well, it's
I know you're
13.5 for the character, which says it's got to be 10 and 15 on either side, so you got 25 feet between every home. So it adds up. So you look at some other neighborhoods within Union Prairie, they don't have as large of setbacks. Some of them are 5 feet, or some of them are 10 feet. You only get 10 or maybe 15 between homes. I mean, that does make it attractive in our neighborhood that you don't have homes that look like shotgun homes that are sitting next to each other. There's some space in between them. And, as I mentioned before, when the development behind us wanted to put homes right next to each other and encroach on those variances, we took objection to that, and the city council agreed with us, and a proposal was put together that didn't allow that.
Are you aware of any other neighbors in your part of the neighborhood that might be considering a change like this?
I don't know.
Okay.
No.
Okay, thank you.
Commissioners, is there any other, Travis, I'm sorry, thank you.
Yeah, thank you. I apologize for my coming in mid-sentence in this discussion here. The property to the north, I don't know if that was discussed. Mr. Franzen, do you know what the side yard setback on the property to the north is? How many feet setback from the adjacent property line?
Let's say that's 20 feet, so you'd have 25-foot distance between the house in the north and where this third stall garage would start.
So then theoretically, if they were to request a variance, bringing it down, or not even requesting a variance, being part of city code standards, they could bring down to 10 feet, and then we'd still have 15-foot buffer between a proposal and the possible future expansion to code.
I'm going to make the assumption that the 20 feet on their south side, then on the north side, they're probably a minimum of 10. So if they were going to do an expansion, it would have to come towards the south end of the setback.
Well, based on that, I can see this as academic and don't really have too many concerns, if any, on this.
Okay, if I might see any comments, I would like to do a quick kind of a roll call on this and see where everyone's at. So, Travis, why don't we start with you and kind of go down the line? Would you be for this or against it?
I would be for it, yeah.
You would be for it, okay.
I do not see any precedent because variances are individually taken, so that the precedent factor with this gentleman, we would consider his circumstances and his plan specifically under its own merit. So I don't necessarily see any problems there.
I think one thing to keep in mind too, I did want to bring up, is that he does have the signatures of the neighbors directly on either side of him and across the street that don't have a problem with this as well too. So I just want to call that out. Make sure commissioners saw that.
They were in favor of it?
They were in favor.
Okay.
They didn't have a problem with it. Okay, Matt, go ahead.
Yeah, to me this is fairly straightforward. I mean, I feel it meets pretty easily the three-part test. I agree with the notion that we should be judging these on individual basis, and I don't really agree that it is a terribly slippery slope. We have the adjoining neighbors are in favor of this project. It meets the three-part test based on the test that we give it, and because of that, I don't have any issues with this particular project.
Okay, thank you. Okay.
I'm okay with the variance.
Okay.
I'd be against it because I think there is a precedent already set where, maybe it wasn't our group, but a previous group said that, for the similar situation, they couldn't go ahead and do it and needed to stay within the standards. And I don't see that adding a third, having a third stall would be very nice, but I don't see them being able to unreasonably use the land without it.
Okay. Thank you very much.
I'm okay with it.
Okay.
I'd be against it.
Okay.
I'd be supportive.
Support. So I've got 5 supports and 2 no's.
Plus you.
Plus me, I would support it as well. Okay, with that being said, is there any other comments that need to take place? Okay. Now I'll entertain a motion.
Mr. Chair, move to close public hearing.
Second.
Motion and second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Move to recommend approval of final order 2012-04.
Second.
Motion and second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Aye.
Oh, aye. I'm sorry.
Okay. We have 2 opposed. That passes. Congratulations. You can move forward with your project.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, moving along, we're going to go to the last one, which would be Mitchell Crossing Apartments, 2012. The request, the location, I guess, is Mitchell Road and Cochrane Lane. The request is for a guide plan change from community commercial to high-density residential on 3.105 acres, a planned unit development concept review on 3.105 acres, a planned unit development district review with waivers on 3.105 acres, a zoning district change from community commercial to RM-2.5 on 3.105 acres, preliminary plat on 3.105 acres into an E-lot, and a site plan review on 3.105 acres. With that being said, will the proponent of the project please come forward and tell us a little bit about your project? We also, please tell us your first name and last name, please.
Hello, Board. My name is Scott Carlston, 8150 Drexel Court, Eden Prairie. Is it okay if I sit down?
Absolutely.
Thanks.
Mr. Carlson, just please speak into that microphone for us.
Will do.
Great, thanks.
Can you, we're all good, okay. We are back here tonight, and there's just a couple items that have changed since the last time we were here. I guess the first thing that I would like to do is introduce Mark Anderson, who is our, with MFRA, our civil engineer. Here, if you look at the screen, is really the crux of the changes since we were here last time. This is the technical change to what's happened is when we were here last time in June, we had 186 units, and the apartment square footage was 214,810. Since that time, our apartment building actually has been reduced in size, but the unit mix has changed where we went and fine-tuned the unit mix, and we went from 186 to 192. So it may sound awkward, but yes, the units went up and the size of the building went down. And at that point, I would like to introduce Mark Anderson here with MFRA, just to chat briefly, if we could, about some of the parking and the issues that we've discussed with staff.
Mr. Anderson, if you come right to the microphone there again, state your name, spell your last name for us.
Sure. Planning Commission, Mr. Chair. Mark Anderson, civil engineer with MFRA. And as Scott said, the primary change was the unit count. I think we're actually at 188 last time we were here versus the 192 under the current proposal. So we do have that change, but there's some other things that were added per staff's comment, and I think have added value to the plan as well, including actually 38 more opportunities for parking stalls within the site. That was a discussion point previously, and so we did find more opportunities to achieve that count. The other thing we've done is added a two-way turnaround at the main entrance, such that there are opportunities. It's kind of a unique situation at the west end of the site where it's inbound traffic only to the site, and so we provided a turnaround at the main door at the south entrance.
Do you have an exhibit that can show for that?
Sure. I'll just set the site plan out here for reference. Slide it over there, Scott. So some of the changes I'm mentioning here are on the south side of the plan, or on the south side of the building.
a new two-way turnaround at the front entrance. And then we've also found a number of proof of parking and perpendicular parking stalls. And the perpendicular stalls were suggested by city staff in lieu of what we had proposed previously. Perpendicular stalls are on the west side of Cochrane, between the building and the street. And so we provide some opportunities if in the event more parking is needed in the future. And then there are 10 stalls at the southeast corner of the building for visitors. So those would be constructed with the initial project. In addition, some of the comments that we had gotten from staff and from the council review was some additional amenities that we've introduced into the landscape plan. Those include benches, trail connection on Mitchell Crossing. We're proposing a decorative concrete stamped walk at the front entrance on the south side, as well as some decorative fencing just to kind of border the south side of the building, and then as well ornamental lighting at a pedestrian scale. There was also a comment about our landscape plan and the desire to have more flowering plantings, and so we've introduced additional flowering plantings and for a total of 14 varieties that will add color to the site throughout the year. So Scott, is there anything else we wanted to point out before we get to the conditions of approval? Or?
Yeah, if I could just go through a couple more of these, if that's okay. I'll go quick, Mike.
Sure.
Mr. Franzen and staff have done, we've worked well together in getting what we think will be a nice amenities. The bike racks outside, staff has also suggested that we do some sort of indoor parking for the bikes, which this shows you the interior layout design of the bike storage inside that'll be secured. We've also discussed the possibility of bringing some bikes, rental bikes possibly. Staff had mentioned perhaps 20, and I think that would be something that I would like to discuss and possibly bring 10 on and see how that would go for maybe a 12-month period to see if indeed that was something that was in demand. I think it is an amenity that would be fun, would be different, and it brings a component of the biking, hiking around the city. I think it'd be a good little bike ride from there over to Southwest Station for dinner and back. So it might be something that we're excited about trying. Another thing that we have discussed, and that is the possibility of the electric car or a rental vehicle on site. I did meet with GE about that, and they actually didn't get back to me at all. But we are open to the idea of perhaps a hybrid car, a single car, and staff had recommended maybe 2 cars. Stephen Scott Management is here. They've done a car at the Ellipse, and they really found that it was not used very much. So what I would like to suggest is maybe we go with 1 car and leave it there for a 12-month period after the building's opened. And if it's used 50% of the time, we'll keep it there. If it's not, we maybe have the ability to eliminate it, something to that effect. And then the other thing was the hiking trails, and that was the dog walk trails. Staff had mentioned getting us down to the bridge for the trail, but, and I'm going to take you to that slide. If you can see right here, there's the bridge that staff is referring to. You can see the yellow arrow I put there. I tried to walk it in the last year, and I actually got about 15 feet from the bridge, and the water was too deep. So as much as I'd like to have the walking trails go around to that bridge, I think it would be too much work trying to fill in wetlands and that sort of thing. But what we would like to propose is meeting with staff and exploring, walking around the ponding area there, and then joining up to the east-west trail system along Highway 5 there. That would be the dog walking trail, because here's that bridge area that I'm talking about that just was so wet.
Yeah, it would likely take some fill within the wetland, even if it's wood chips. Generally are considered a a fill that's not allowed without a permit or mitigation. And so I think our preference would be to stay out of the wetland and, like Scott said, connected to the south along Highway 5.
Here's the trail that I was talking about connecting to. So really, that's then the only other thing that I would like to discuss further, if we could, with staff is we move forward with the engineering department. Was that we wanted to try to keep the 2 parking stalls by the front door because of the elderly or bad weather. It'd be great to have 2 spots right up by the front door. We've talked briefly, and maybe that would be something that we could just entertain as we continue down the road with staff and engineering. That being said, would love any comments. There was some other things that we've discussed, and that is some possible sculptures which we will be bringing onto the site. And these are just kind of some conceptual things that we're doing to give it personality. Just some sort of different ideas that we've entertained. These are actually heaters, believe it or not. It's kind of fun.
I had just 2 small questions. The first one, although they're moderate, what's been causing the change in number of units? I wasn't quite clear on that. Are you just remixing the unit types a little bit, or?
Todd, do you want to speak onto that? There's good reasons for it, actually.
I am Todd Mohegan, Mohegan Hanson Architectural Group, and basically it's just changing unit mix. There's a little bit smaller. Changing unit mix. When we first started out, we assumed certain sizes for 1 bedrooms, 1 bedroom plus den, and studios. And as we've gone along, there's been more of a market need for studios and 1 bedroom, so we've reduced the amount to 2 bedrooms and 1 bedroom plus den.
Okay.
So that's the reason it could go down and we get more units.
Okay. And the one other thing I wasn't quite clear on is the role of the hybrid car or cars for the residents. So what function would those cars serve? I understand the green impact, but what function would those cars serve for the residents? I'm not quite clear.
That's a great question, and really what we're looking for, and I think that's going to be the bridge for the ability that we discussed as far as parking. I think that we look at it a little differently as far as what we think is needed, and where that comes from is us providing the ability that someone who didn't have a car could have a use of a car as a rental option on site. They tried it, Steve and Scott tried it over at the Ellipse. It was not used much, but it is an option and a thought and an idea, and it's something new and different.
Okay. Thank you.
I'm going to go with staff report, and I'll get back to you. Okay, thank you very much. We'll let you know if we have any further questions.
Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Francis, you want to take us through the staff report, please?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. The staff recommends approval according to the recommendations on page 5 and 6 of the staff report. And maybe I'll just touch on a few points here.
Please do.
There's a 24 parking space gap. And we're not of the mindset, I mean, always the simple solution is if the parking and the units don't match, you just simply take units out and then you're fine. So we were looking for an alternative way to look at parking because this is going to be in a TOD area near the light rail station. We're hoping that more people will walk. You might have less vehicles. But for the people that have 1 or no vehicles, it might be nice to have the opportunity to be able to rent a car to do work or a personal trip or whatever. These cars are kind of what's new in TOD areas across the country. There isn't a lot of empirical research on it about how much they're being used or not being used. I think the reason we probably came up with 2 rather than 1 is that we're not near a transit line. We don't have a bus line that goes by here on a regular basis. And your walking distance to go to Southwest Station's about a mile. So that's about a 25-minute walk. At least for a person of my age anyways. I'm sure younger people can get there quicker like all of you can. And to get to the other one at Metro Crossing's a little bit shorter, but you have to cross the intersections to get there with that. In regards to the parking spaces on the road, what we're trying to do is minimize the number of conflicts that you'll have on that south side of Cochrane Lane. because you will at one time, you'll probably have some spillover times. You have people going to the restaurant, people leaving the daycare, people going to and from the apartments, and to try and keep those 2 lanes open is a good thing. It's another reason why we were looking at trying to realign up some of the driveway entrances opposite to the entrances to the south. In regards to the trail, I think I'll defer some comments to Stuart Fox from Park and Recreation about that.
Okay, Mr. Fox?
Just a couple of comments regarding that trail connection. The first thing is that trail was put in as part of our park and open space plan as a nature trail, which means that basically it's not ADA compliant. It's never been intended to be ADA compliant, and it really serves the people on executive and equitable drives above. They can come down, kind of wander along the creek. At one time, you actually could daylight directly onto Mitchell Road, but that was before Cochrane Lane and the Highway 5 improvements were made, which basically cut that off. We found it very effective in a lot of our conservation areas to build boardwalks. You don't need a fill permit. You don't have to mitigate for wetlands. We've got several up in like the Eden Brook Conservation Area, Riley Creek Woods, Lower Purgatory Creek. These are basically boardwalks. They're built on pedestal feet, and people find them very attractive to be able to walk across there. We don't plow these in the wintertime. They are simply what I call spring fall trails, because in the summertime the mosquitoes and the heat will take care of you. But they're very nice to walk if you just want to go out for a nature walk, and they're not a destination trail. You don't have a lot of traffic, but the people immediately in the area do enjoy those, and we'd like to see that trail connection completed.
Who would handle the upkeep for those walks, those boardwalks?
Once the connection's made, then the city park department, park maintenance department would take care of all the maintenance from that point forward.
Very good. Okay, seeing that this is a public hearing, is there anybody out in the audience that has any comments or concerns? Not seeing any. Jerry, you had a comment?
Yes, question for Mr. Carlson. How do you manage the parking inside of the building? When somebody rents an apartment, are they required, or do they automatically get a parking stall? And if they get a 2-bedroom apartment, do they automatically get 2 stalls? Or how do you make sure that people that have apartments don't anticipate just parking out on the street?
And I will turn that over to Barb Halverson, who's the president of Stephen Scott Management. Again, they manage 7,500 units. They manage properties here in Eden Prairie, and she can answer that question.
Please state your name and spell your last name for a record.
Good evening. I'm Barbara Halverson, Stephen Scott Management. I would like to say that parking management is much like people management in the properties. It isn't just random. We oftentimes, on a lot of properties, if parking is tight, more in urban areas, we only can allow a certain number of cars per apartment. So as people come in, they're just told. But usually when you have underground parking of that nature, it's 1 per apartment that you allow people to rent until you're absorbed at that level. And then there's 251 bedrooms in this property, so if you have 1 person per bedroom, 1 car per bedroom, which is a normal ratio, 2 people in a 2-bedroom, 1 person in a 1-bedroom, you have plenty of parking, and there's excess in case you'd have 2 cars in a 2-bedroom. So normally they would rent 1 in the underground garage. Some people could rent 2 or park on the surface, if possible. But it's we manage a property on Excelsior Boulevard, the Ellipse on Excelsior, and we have 1 per bedroom there, and we just have to regulate it. When people come in, if it's a 1-bedroom, they can't have more than 1 car and live there. They just can't. So we've had people that have had to not live there because of that. And we're 100% occupied. So it's the parking ratios these days. The unit mix of these properties are smaller. Their efficiencies in 1 bedroom, so you have a much higher likelihood that you're only going to have 1 car per apartment. We manage Edenvale, which is right around the corner from this property. A lot more 2-bedroom apartments, so you know the unit mixes are larger, so you have more cars per apartment in those situations than you do in these new ones. So we manage parking like people, pets, everything. It's a plan, and you start when people move in by having an agreement on how many cars they're allowed to have there. The hour car, the minute car, whatever you'd like to call it, would come in handy for people that maybe it is two people that live there and they don't need two cars all the time, but once in a while it's convenient to have a second car if they have guests in town or have a doctor's appointment. So I could see where that could help in a situation where people are maybe trying to downsize and do with one car, where it gives them that flexibility to not having to use a cab or call mom or the kids or whoever drives them. So I think it's a practical idea. Whether or not it's used, I guess, is more something to be seen if we try it. So. Does that answer?
Actually, it doesn't.
Oh, all right. I'm sorry. Please ask again.
Yeah, my concern is that somebody rents a studio apartment or a one-bedroom apartment, and they don't want to rent your garage stall. They want to just park on the street. Can they do that?
Well, up to the point where they're only allowed to have one vehicle, and if we have enough parking spots for them to have it either on the surface or in the garage, it doesn't matter where they park, up to only having one vehicle. They'd still be allowed to have one vehicle.
But you are not going to be controlling those spots that are on Cochrane Lane or whatever, that those could be, general public could potentially park there. And my concern is that if somebody decides that they don't want to spend the extra money, the extra $50 a month or whatever, to pay for indoor parking, that they could just decide to park outside. And if you had 30 people or 40 apartments decide to do that, you could have a huge issue. And would it make more sense to have your rental rates include a requirement for one parking stall per unit?
We've done that too before, where you just increase the amount of the rent by that amount and they're included. But still, it's Mr. Pitzrig. It still is a matter of our being really clear when people move in what they're allowed to do with their vehicles too. That, there could be some temporary parking outside or guest parking outside, but they're not allowed to leave vehicles in those areas overnight. So.
Okay. Would that be up to the control of the apartment or to the city, or how those stalls are managed outside on the street?
I guess it's part of the right-of-way, and so it's open to the public. We're not going to go out and determine whether there's someone that's visiting there, or they're the renter there, or there's someone from the funeral home or from the daycare. It doesn't make any particular difference to us. It's just vehicles. All we're concerned about is having our contingency plan, that in the event that you do find a lot of cars being parked outside, you have a mechanism for adding those in the future. So they're going to have 10 permanent parking spaces outside. So if someone chose to park out there in one of those 10, they could do it. If they ended up with more than the 10, more than likely they're going to park parallel on either side of Cochrane Lane until such time that it becomes so congested that you have to implement the proof of parking on the property to add the other 24 possible parking spaces there.
Okay.
If I may add as well, since we were here last time, we've added 38 more stalls since the last time we were here.
Indoor or outdoor stalls?
As the mix, just actual stalls. Mark, do you have the exact numbers?
And we've actually calculated, based on the unit mix, we believe you need 273 indoor parking stalls to accommodate the people that we believe will have cars there.
And we'll have 300.
Yeah, and they'll have more than
And
that.
that's where I think you have lots you have great indoor parking. Mm-hmm. My concern is that people may not decide to use it.
Right.
And so I'd like to see you require that they use it. And so then we're going to alleviate a lot of potential problems with outdoor parking.
No, I
because
understand.
all the residents are going to be parking inside, and we're assured of that because they're paying for it.
Well, and you'd think in Minnesota they'd want to do that, but that's not always the case.
Right.
If you're in a budget.
Exactly.
Do you want to address that?
Yeah, just to clarify, the 38 additional stalls, we've got the same number inside. The 38 are additional constructed and proof of parking locations that are shown on the current site plan.
Okay. That's all.
Go ahead, Commissioner.
Mr. Franzen, I don't know if this is a fair question, but were there any highlights in any discussion that went on at the council meeting relative to this project that might be interesting for this commission to know?
I think that there were simply just questions, but there wasn't any particular direction. Asking the Planning Commission to look at this, that, or the other thing. There wasn't any indication on their comfort level on green space or on parking. They just had a lot of questions. So they referred it back to us, us being the commission, not the staff. And take a look at what I did in the summary questions is kind of highlighted the questions that were coming up at the council, the
What,
topics that they talked about.
What page are you referencing there, Mr.
That would be on page 4.
Real quick, can you just give me the procedural background? Why? I think I missed a couple meetings. Or I know I did. Like, within a minute, like, just so I understand why it went to the council and why it's...
If I understand correctly, what happened is that we heard it with so many stalls, and then it changed, the plan changed to the city council, and legal counsel caught it, didn't they, and said, wait, that's not what was discussed prior,
Legal counsel said that
and
the
kicked it
planning
back.
commission has to act on a PUD plan, and they acted on a plan for less units than the ones that we took to the council. So city council said to make sure that we're doing things in a fair and correct manner with our ordinance, and to also allow for proper due process, because in the event that someone came and saw the file for a small unit plan and decided not to come, and now they find out later that it's gone up, then the city and the developer both have that issue to deal with.
Okay.
So to make it possible, they said, come back to the planning commission, take a look at this new plan, do the normal due diligence that you do in reviewing the plan, and tell us what you think about that. And it's back on the city council agenda because it was continued till August 21st. So if you take an action up or down, it would go forward to that meeting.
That makes sense.
That does mean, though, that we want to be pretty firm about the number of units we're talking about here, because I heard 192 and then I heard 188. So I think we want to make sure that doesn't happen again, where we're looking at something that's a little different from what the council might see.
188 was the application, 185 came to the commission, 192 went to the council, 192 is your plan tonight.
And that is the same plan that's going to the council?
Yes.
But didn't I hear a correction to 188?
No, they were just indicating what plan they had started with previously.
Oh, okay.
It is 192, and the building, like I said, has been reduced in size.
All right, thank you.
Commissioner Lee.
Can the other commission members just give me some feel for any discussion you guys had on the height? I mean, as I look at this, we're talking about parking stalls and trails, and I see that, like, the thing sticking out to me is this gigantic building 40 feet above, the requirement or the limitation. And so I'm just interested in what you guys did.
That's fine. No. I think that's fine. The only slippery slope is really the parking stuff is what we're talking about. We can open it up for anything else, and I wasn't here, by the way, for record. But we're just going down a slippery slope if we open everything up again. If everyone wants to do that, that's fine. Okay. Mr. Franzen, do you have any comments you'd like to?
Actually, this is a new public hearing. It's a new plan, so everything is on the table.
So everything is on the table.
So you can talk about height, the land use, the green space, the waivers, proof of parking. All those things are open for discussion.
Very good. With that being said, do you have a...
I can speak to the height issue. I mean, I appreciate the concessions that were made by the project proponent, but as I'm already on the record as saying I'm not in favor of this project. I'm primarily not in favor of the guide plan change, mostly due to the density. I don't believe the density is right for this location. I think, not that I think the comprehensive guide plan is a Bible and needs to be followed all the time, but you look at the situation and say this building probably has a good chance of being approved if it's in, well, it already was approved by us, but I'm saying in my opinion, I'd like to see it more in an area like either the Golden Triangle area near that station where walkability is more of an option, the major center area, which granted there are flaws to that plan and we can debate that to no end. But really I just don't see this as being really a true TOD. I kind of feel like this project is trying to create the type of development that happened over at a Southwest Station and saying, oh, it's the same thing over here at Mitchell Crossings, but Southwest Station was created as one development. This is in an existing area saying, and they don't even necessarily know where the station is going to be. It's going to be on the south side of Highway 5. And to that point, we don't even know if the station is going to exist at this point because they have not completed the PE of the Southwest Light Rail line. So I don't feel comfortable moving forward with this project based on that it's supposed to be a TOD for light rail transit. So I look at it just as, is the density appropriate for this area? And I believe no. But that's clearly just my opinion. That's where...
Commissioners, may I ask, who was here that night that this was discussed? Okay. And can you give me some...
Yeah, I'll just make a comment
text on what was said and done.
Matt and I represented that kind of minority position, and I'll let somebody who was in the majority speak to position. But Matt's comments reflected my perspective as well.
Jerry, why don't you go first, and then we'll Frank.
Yeah, the vote was 4-2 at that time.
Okay.
And,
In favor of?
In favor of the
Yes.
project.
Okay.
And, my perspective on it was that I didn't have a real concern with the density or the height, and I thought it was a great use of this particular piece of property that it kind of sits in a hole relative to Highway 5, so the fact that it's taller than the standards for the area wasn't a big concern for me. I am concerned about sort of parking management, but I think that if they don't manage the parking effectively, they're not going to rent their units, so they're going to have a much bigger problem that they're going to have to deal with, and they're going to have to figure out how to get everybody to park inside the building. So my preference would be to see them require the parking, but if it creates a problem, I think they can deal with it. The setbacks and all, that was another part of the discussion. I think most of us didn't have a real big concern there because we do allow setback variances, and again, this particular piece of property, it's going to be hard to develop in some other way, I think, because of the soil conditions. Like it says in the report here, they have to do pile foundations, and when you do pile foundations, when you make that decision for a 3-story building to go up to a 5-story building, doesn't add a whole lot in cost for the foundations, but you can spread it out over a much bigger building when you've got a taller building. And so if somebody else comes in and wants to do a 3-story building, they're still going to have to do the pile foundations and have that huge expense, and they're probably just not going to do a building. And so it's a site that has a lot of issues, and there's the open space to the east of the site, which, where we talked about the little bridge there and all, so the density is sort of softened because of all that open space. So anyway.
Okay. Steve, do you have any comments?
No, I would just say that in our initial meeting, we really didn't talk about density very much and the consequences of density and so on. We focused more on the ratio of parking, as I recall, and they have improved on that since that initial meeting. I'd like to get just a little better understanding of the concern about density, if we could. So understand the comment, but what are the implications of density in that area as you think about them?
I mean, to my point, it was more just, is this the right location for this type of density? And I think if this could be a type of development that would be a catalyst to spur similar type of development in and around that area, I would be much more in favor of the project. But frankly, I just don't see that happening on at least a short-term time scale, maybe a 30, 50-year horizon. But we've already got pretty well-established industrial, commercial areas to the west of there, pretty well-developed residential to the north, as well as a golf course in the adjacent area. So I just don't really see how this is going to really become that catalyst and be a real TOD type of mix that really is going to create that type of mix of uses that really is what POD is all about, and making things more walkable and so on.
Thank you.
Maybe I can add a comment. I agree with Matt. I actually love the concept. I just unfortunately don't like it on that piece of property. And I think, Mike, isn't it fair to say, and I think you said it in the report, that this is the highest density in the city? This would be, I think that was stated, wasn't it?
I think I saw that.
That would be correct. I think we cited Watertower,
80.
Lincoln Park, and Bluffs at 9 Mile Creek.
So, I would just reinforce what Matt said. I like the idea behind it, but it just doesn't fit the piece of property, in my opinion.
If we didn't have variances, how large a building could be built there? What could be built there if we didn't allow variances?
You could do an apartment building, but it's going to be smaller. I mean, if you do it according to the guide plan for high density, and you do it according to ordinance, you're only going to fit 54 units on there. So that's going to be plenty of room to do surface parking and underground parking.
So kind of a 3-story, 54-unit apartment complex?
Yes.
A $10 million project versus a $35 million project? Or
I don't know what the cost would be. I just know you've got it. There's just a difference in the height and size of the two projects.
Does anybody have any concerns with the height?
Well, I do.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, I just think, in my opinion, it would really stick out. I don't know what the thinking around that area, the tallest thing, we're talking 3 stories, right? I mean, getting over towards ADC as I'm going kind of around there. I mean, what's Southwest Station condos? Are those 3 or 4?
There are 3 stories, 3.5.
And this is how many?
Just be 7 or 8 or something.
And
No.
How do you get up to 85?
It kind of depends where you measure up to.
5 stories apartment, 1 story of parking, technically. I mean, where there's a line that you draw where what's considered a basement. So from a building code standpoint, it's 1 story of parking above grade, and then 5 stories of apartments above that. So 6 total stories.
That 1 story of parking that's above grade, the top of that level, would that about match up with Mitchell Road?
No.
Or it is a bit higher than
It's
Mitchell?
lower than Mitchell Road.
It's still lower than Mitchell Road.
Yeah.
5.5.
Well, it sounds like it's maybe even, okay. The first level of apartments, that floor level, how does that match up with Mitchell Road?
Would it be about 2 feet below, I believe?
We're at 850 to the first floor.
So it's like less than 5 stories above Mitchell Road.
What's the road on Mitchell Road?
Crazy math here, right?
I know.
Right. Well, the site slopes, and the first garage level is 100% below grade, and then the second garage level is partially below grade. And
I mean, he's the engineer. He'll tell you the real math. I'm the artist. Where Buca sits right now, that roof, that Buca is, the top of the roof is going to be a little bit higher than our rooftop deck.
Rooftop.
So if you're driving on the exit road and on 5, Buca's up higher than the road, so it stands up a little bit. So the impact of the building, you're really only going to see probably 4.5 stories from Highway 5. And then if you're at Mitchell Road, that's probably fairly equal to, but if you're on the overpass that goes to the south, that goes up about another story or 2 stories. I mean, it's quite a bit higher. If you go and look at it on your way out, it drops down quite a bit.
Okay. Thank you.
So, would it help, hold on one second, would it help commissioners if we had maybe better rendering, or we can get kind of a different idea of what it's going to look from different angles?
I mean, I support moving forward with the project in light of all these questions. I think it's a big enough project to go to the city council, and it's already been to the city council. I wouldn't want to, I don't think we have support anyhow to even get enough people in favor of it. So I'm not so opposed to it that I don't think it should go to the city council.
Okay. Go ahead, Kate.
I had a question kind of on the money side of it. I guess for those of you who feel like it may be a little bit too big of a project for that site, maybe say, what would you guys like to see there? Something just with less stories?
Yeah, I mean, that's, like I said, I believe the heights would just be more kind of like, to Jake's point, kind of just more of an eyesore, and I'm not against the idea of housing on this location, I guess, if that's your question you're asking. It's just this particular type of development I don't see as being the right fit.
I guess I'm just wondering if this might be, the best use of the property, kind of what Jerry was saying with the soils and everything, if we will actually see a great project of maybe that size ever happen on this property or not.
Like I said, I have no doubt that it would be a great project. It's simply just a fundamental disagreement on the size, the scope of the project.
my guess is we're going to have something like this, or we're going to have a strip shopping center on that site, that there's not going to be a whole lot in between, and it's what's the best use for the city for that site.
Any other comments? No? Mr. Franson, Travis, did you have anything? No? Did you have a comment, Travis?
No.
No, okay. Mr. Franson, do you have any closing remarks as far as the city goes?
You know, when you look at a comprehensive guide plan and you look at the waivers, you always look for what's part of the trade, what are we getting in return, and compare it to developing the site in accordance with the comprehensive plan. Back in the 80s, there was a 20,000 square foot shopping center approved there on that property with a 5,000 square foot office building, and then you had the gas station. The gas station was the only one that went forward because there were other commercial sites around town that were closer to 494 and 5, and so that's why they didn't move forward. We had I remember to turn this on. Usually Rod kicks me to do that, but he hasn't done that tonight. What was my last statement here before I lost my train of thought here?
Commercial property in 494.
Commercial property in 494, that the momentum was swinging in that direction. And then we had the momentum swinging back towards doing senior housing and combinations of senior housing and commercial and apartments and commercial. And we had the proposal 3 or 4 years ago for Mitchell Crossing where we had senior condos and we had 6,000 square feet of rental. And that was right before the market kind of went like this. And nothing was happening with that type of project anywhere around the country, basically. So the door is kind of wide open for this. We've had residential proposals, senior proposals, apartment proposals, commercial proposals. It really doesn't make that much of a difference from the city staff point of view. It's a 3-acre site. It's not going to change the future of the city. The one point I think that makes some sense to me in developing TOD areas that you'd love to have this project in Golden Triangle next to the station, where you have a real high concentration of employment, and you have a lot of kind of older cold storage warehouse sites that are at that point where do you make more investment in the building or do you turn it over to something like that, and they have a signature project like this there. You probably have other people thinking about doing similar types of projects or at least upgrading maybe some of their industrial buildings, tearing them down and converting them into office. So you probably would have greater potential for redevelopment. I agree with the Commissioner fighting about that if it was in a different location.
So from a planning perspective and 30,000 feet up, kind of looking over everything, you don't think this is a bad use of the land?
I don't think multiple family is a bad use of the property. I think our concern was basically performance. What does it look like? How much green space do you have? And we looked at it and said, we don't want proof of parking in every available green space because green space is important to a project, especially when you have a taller building, a lot of building mass. And so we tried to figure out a solution to make up that 24-unit gap. And in years of past, prior to TOD, we wouldn't have hesitated just to say, take 12 units out of the project. But kind of on the fringe of the TOD area, we see other examples of going a little bit greener with some other solutions to parking with the hybrid cars and the bikes. And we thought, well, if here's an opportunity at K site to try it, this might be the particular case to do it. Because based upon our analysis of parking and the high amount of studios, you can probably get by with a number of 346 rather than, can't remember what the number was, 388 to 400. So we have a comfort level that if they had to implement the proof of parking, that it would probably still function and not create parking problems with the other businesses that are in that particular location.
Okay.
Mike, do you have any feelings about, I mean, this has come up from a number of different folks, the aesthetics of the project in that particular area. When we had our original discussion, there were a couple folks who brought up the issue of trying to squeeze a pretty big project into a smaller space. I'm just curious if your department has any perspectives on this aesthetics issue.
If you're going to go urban in a TOD area, this is what it's going to look like. It's going to have less setback, less green areas, because you're building taller buildings, and you're encouraging the walkability. So you're going to have wider sidewalks and less green area. And in the TOD areas, you're typically on sites that, at least in Eden Prairie, they're all developed. So if you're going to take down buildings in Golden Triangle, you've got some money that you got to spend to clean up the site and take the materials off of it, so your development costs are going to be higher. And if we're going to try to encourage some affordable housing in the TOD areas, you've got to have some density bonuses to go with it. So that would be our expectation, that you're going to have taller buildings, higher density, less setbacks, a different type of green area, more of an urban green area in your TOD areas.
Thank you.
Mr. Carlson, go ahead.
If I may, just in summary here, if I could, for the folks of the Planning Commission who were not at the last meeting, there's not been a new apartment building built in Eden Prairie since 2004. I don't know if you're aware of that. This lot we bought was a leftover remnant orphan lot with nothing, a lot of wannabe things on here that never came to anything. We have dug down in that lot. We've done soil tests and borings. It does get down into the wetlands, and you are right, it's going to take a lot of correction on that. There is a daycare proposed next to us because the building is proposed to go there. I think that was a big reason. I talked to the owner of the land who's selling it to the daycare provider, and that was the idea, is because of this building is the reason why they wanted to put the daycare center. That's what John Latson told me, who sold them the property. I don't... I've been a resident for 20 years here, and it kind of pains me to hear the comment about what are we going to give to the city, because as far as I'm concerned, the city's been great, but in 2012, we're willing to put $35 million into orphan lot. I would think that, and I hope that, as a group, we all are excited to have it here. Me being a resident as well, it's going to bring a lot of revenue to the city, and I think it's a big step, and we're going to make a building that we're real proud of. And I hope we can all look at it that way when we drive down Highway 5. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Commissioners, any closing comments from anybody? Seeing again, this is a public hearing. Is there anybody out in the audience that would like to come forward, make any comments? If so, now would be the time. Not seeing any. If everyone feels comfortable, we'll take it to a vote. Entertain a motion.
So moved.
Close the public hearing.
Okay, what's that?
Yep, the
close
motion
public
is
hearing.
closed. Public hearing.
Great. With motion second, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Before we move to the actual motion, if we read the motion as it's stated here, it would require the 2 hybrid cars and the 20 bicycles. Do we want to stick with that, or do we want to make adjustments to that? You know, I'm comfortable with 1 car and 10 bikes myself.
I actually I'm glad that you brought that up, because I myself too am quite comfortable with 1 car, and I didn't necessarily have an opinion either way on the bikes because the marginal cost can be so low, but I'm not necessarily certain if written in the developer's agreement we want to have a long-term in perpetuity requirement to sustain 2 hybrid cars there if the economies of scale doesn't actually fit and it doesn't make sense in a bean counting environment. If you have a litmus test of maybe, and I think the proponent brought up 12 months, I would say something a little more long-term, a little more averaging of 24 months or maybe 32 or something like, 2.5 years or so. At least you get yourself built out and get yourself absorbed to a significant degree where you would be able to be categorized and statistically looked at. But I would say that 1 car would be all right, and then have some sort of statement that says, if it's not utilized on a consistent basis on a certain litmus test within a 2.5-year period, then the developer has the option to continue forward with that project. That's just my 2 cents.
I would agree with that. I think that makes a lot of sense economically for them, because we don't know what the usage rate is going to be at this point.
Any other comments or feedback as far as the trails go? The board was discussed about a boardwalk. City staff brought that up. I think that's a good idea. I like seeing that.
Having used the recommendation, use Stu's recommendation and connect to that bridge with some kind of boardwalk makes sense.
I'm seeing some nods. Okay.
Is that in the recommendation from the city staff? Is that, in other words, would that already be included in the motion?
If you recommend approval, it's according to the conditions in the staff report.
And was that part of the conditions in the staff report?
It is in the staff report. It is the constructed trail. It's item number 8 on page 6.
Right.
And I think our recommendation is that we like the boardwalk idea.
Right. yeah, it doesn't specifically state it has to be a boardwalk, but it has to be some kind of connection to the
Right.
bridge, so.
I think it's okay as it is.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, with that being said, I'll entertain a motion.
You want to try it, Steve, or you want me to?
Oh, go ahead.
Okay. Mr. Chairman, move to recommend approval of the guide plan change from community commercial to high-density residential on 3.105 acres, planned unit development concept review on 3.105 acres, planned unit development district review with waivers on 3.105 acres, zoning district change from community commercial to RM 2.5 on 3.105 acres, preliminary plat of 3.105 acres into one lot, and site plan review on 3.105 acres based on plan stamp dated August 7th, 2012, and the staff report dated August 10th, 2012, with the following modifications. Rather than requiring two hybrid electric vehicles, that the project proponent would provide one hybrid electric vehicle, and in 32 months, the project proponent and the staff would review the use of that vehicle and determine whether or not to proceed forward based on some agreement that's reached prior to the actual development. And that there would be a requirement for 10 bicycles initially with a similar review, and the terms of how that review takes place in 32 months would be agreed upon before the development is started.
Could I offer a suggestion? I think you want to go from the date that it's fully occupied. And I think we'd want to look at a 5-year time period, because you're going to have turnover in that time period. And we're going to have better data over a 5-year period. So 5 years from the date of occupancy, or we actually figure out a date in the development agreement.
Okay.
Could we also say electric or hybrid, one of the two?
I don't care.
Sure. Okay.
Thank you.
As long as,
Okay.
as long as it's green.
Think about it for a second.
Right. Right. Or it could be natural gas or
Yes,
fuel
happens to be
cell or
it.
whatever. No. Okay, so we'll modify that to be, in the staff report dated August 10th, 2012, with the following modifications. That'll be one hybrid electric or all-electric vehicle, and that will be reviewed 5 years after the date of occupancy for whether or not it will be continued to be provided at the property. And in the final development agreement, it'll determine how that will be evaluated. And similarly for 10 bicycles, which will be evaluated also at 5 years after occupancy of the facility.
Second.
A motion and second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Nay.
Nay.
Okay. Congratulations.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
John.
John, Matt.
Yep.
Yep. Just two. All right. Thank you very much, Commissioners. I appreciate your diligence with that. Moving on, Mr. Franzen, Planner's Report.
Yes.
Very exciting. Very excited.
The appropriate action for the commission is to make the following motion. Approve the resolution finding the sale of certain park property is in compliance with the comprehensive municipal plan. And if you make that motion, before our chair and vice chair leave, I will need their signature on the document.
So can you discuss just real briefly on how this came about?
Property owner wants to create a second lot. There's not enough width on Sunnybrook Road to subdivide in the east-west manner. So in order to subdivide it in the north-south manner, you need to have frontage on a public road. Well, we don't have public right-of-way. We bought this property for park purposes in the road. So what we want to do is sell a strip of property, so we wouldn't have this area to maintain, basically. They combine it with the lot. It creates the frontage to give them two lots. And it's a piece of park property that we don't use for park purposes, and so this is why our attorney has advised us that we could be comfortable in making a motion that it is still consistent with their comprehensive guide plan, because that strip is not needed for the rest of the park to function in that area.
And this does not need a public hearing at all?
It does not.
Okay.
You'll have your opportunity at some point when the property owner brings this in to do the preliminary plat and rezone the property from rural to R113.5.
Got it. Okay. Any questions at all, Commissioners?
I got a question, yeah.
Yes, sir.
With the constraints of the road structure and the new addition width and length, what are the options without variances or waivers on that property? What I don't want to see is I don't want to see a landowner that's going to now have an incurred cost for extra, thinking he's going to possibly hope for a contingency to get approvals, and then for some quirky reason he doesn't get approvals.
And then he's already put money in.
And then he's already put money, he's sold it to the city, he's kind of been slapped by the city.
I think there's going to
two different
be,
ways.
as part of the agreement for the sale, there's going to be some things regarding us. If we sell the property, he gets the property, he gets to create the two lots. We've looked at this enough to know that if he does the subdivision with this additional property, he can get two conforming lots to the R113.5 zoning district. So if he brings in a conforming plan, we have an obligation to approve it. I agree. If I'm the property owner buying this, I want to know that I'm going to be able to have a couple of lots. And we've made that commitment and that indication to them that you could fit two conforming lots on the property.
I got another question, if I may.
Absolutely, please.
So the conforming lots are in a east-west division basis, so the entrances would be on Sunnybrook, is that accurate?
Entrance is going to be on Homeward Hills
On Homeward
Road.
Hill.
One in Sunnybrook,
One in...
Really?
I think. Well,
I thought they were both on,
both of them. Okay.
because my understanding, the house is coming down. I'd have to go back and double check that.
It looks like it would be split on Homeward Hills.
Yeah.
No, I'm not necessarily the split, but the entrance structure. The reason I ask is I think I remember in history the property on the other side of Homeward Hills there's been conversations of that, and the city staff, correct me if I'm wrong, but was adamant against a Homeward Hills entrance because of sightline issues on the radius coming south or northbound along there. This is the southeastern corner, the property in the southeastern corner. Am I talking out of turn on this, or is that...
The property across
Yep,
the street.
correct, yeah.
This property has a wetland that's in the center of it, and it's questionable whether or not they actually have two sites that are large enough to actually have two lots there.
Okay. So it was the wetland and not the sightline concerns on Homeward Hills that...
Question about the sight line. I know I've done enough research to know about the wetland impacts. There is some wetland encroachment and fill that's happened on the property that needs to be corrected, so that's probably another reason why something hasn't happened there.
Okay.
Any other concerns? Jess, did you get your questions answered? You okay?
Yeah. Yep. Everything's good.
All right. We need a motion.
Mr. Chairman, move to approve the resolution finding that the sale of certain park property is in compliance with the comprehensive municipal plan.
Second.
Motion and second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. Congratulations, your project passed, Mr. Franson.
It's Mr. Lothammer.
I see. Moving forward, is there any other planners reports for tonight?
Nothing else to say.
Nothing else. We have a members report for tonight.
Yes, there was a community advisory committee for the Southwest LRT, the meeting last Thursday. Few items to report. They're wrapping up the draft EIS document currently. They're anticipating it to be about 1,000 pages long, they say. So they didn't give us an exact date when it was going to be done, but they said by the end of September was their goal. Then there is a public comment period throughout that. They'll submit it to the FTA. Their timeline says May 2014, so quite a significant amount of time there. There was what else do I got here? They did re-release an RFP redo an RFP for preliminary engineering, and as part of this RFP, they had to have a separate oversight firm to oversee the work, whoever is awarded the PE contract. Submittals for that they anticipate to be received by the fall. They're going to award at the end of the year, start of PE in spring 2013. They still, because of this delay, they say just a few extra $1 million. They don't give a number, but it's peanuts.
Extra million.
It's just peanuts in the large scheme of things. But even with the delay, they're still anticipating a 2018 completion because I believe that they're looking to change us from a design bid build to a design build process. So that's where they're going to look to try and save the time. I believe they did it with Hiawatha and Central Corridor, so there is precedent here with that. The last item was there's going to be, and Mike probably knows something about this, or if he doesn't, here's the news. There's going to be access and circulation plans for station areas. That planning is going to start via the LRT Community Works side. What do we got? September, I believe. That'll be about a 9 to 12 month process. That's about where we are at. So we'll start seeing plans soon enough. Is that safe to say, as far as station areas?
That is correct.
All right.
There you go.
That's all I got.
Thank you very much. Any other members' reports?
I'd just like to make a comment about the light rail. Travis and Matt and I have all been to meetings, and I think we came away with the impression that the Citizens Advisory Committee is a big group of 70-some people where we can make some comments, but it's not really going to lead to any action. That we're just going to have some comments, and they're going to be collected, and it's really not going to have a huge impact. It might, change some sign that's going to face a little more east versus west or something, but it's not going to be the kind of meeting where we're going to be able to impact the location of the town center kind of station. And I think if we want to be serious about our concerns that we've all jointly expressed about the town center station, I think we have to be much more assertive in our involvement, and I think that takes that we have to have a significant commitment from the city manager on down to Mike's level, and we have to have the mayor on board, and we actually have to get in tune with several of the private businesses and all, and look at other options, because the town center station, as it now stands up by Costco, that's the cheapest route, but it's the least desirable route probably that we could come up with for the city of Eden Prairie, to put a station up by Costco, and I don't think Costco would be especially fond of it either. And so if we want to try to influence that in some fashion to get a station located where it's going to make more sense for our community, we're going to have to really bring together significant resources, and I don't think our just attending CACs and other similar kinds of meetings is going to come anywhere close to having that kind of impact.
Who runs that meeting?
It's a subdivision of the Metropolitan Council of
Met Council?
It's Met Council members.
Okay. Great.
So I just would like to encourage us to, do you guys agree? I guess you've been to those meetings.
Yeah, I mean, I agree completely as far as it not being a real significant way to voice any real concern, really sway the process, I suppose. We can voice concern, but whether or not it'll be any real impact, I don't see. It'll be minimal at most.
Right.
So.
We can bring up ideas about other locations for the town center station, and they're going to say, well, that's more expensive. Go away. And then we can say, well, it's going to have increased ridership, it's going to be a little bit longer commute time, but it's going to have a huge positive impact on our community. And so we need to be able to come forward with that kind of information in a very specific, detailed fashion, comprehensive fashion, in order to really influence this process, or else we're going to end up with just the rough-in of a town center station up by Costco. I doubt that they will ever build it up there. They'll say that that's there to respond to the comprehensive guide plan, which shows the town center being constructed in that area at the time that Costco and Emerson are demolished and move on elsewhere. And so the timing of that is, well, I don't think I'll be alive.
Right.
So building on that a little bit, do we have or should we be developing a clear understanding as to how to have impact? And how would one do that? So who would do that? Is that worthwhile? I mean, I certainly would build on on us being pretty highly integrated with what's going on here, and maybe having it be a regular point of discussion in these meetings and so on. But do we understand how to do that? Should we all agree that we want to?
Go ahead.
I'll just speak to the point that the CAC is in place. I mean, supposed to be the realm where these discussions take place and where these comments are forwarded to larger decision makers. And there is a chain of command, if you want to call it that, where they have above us is the steering committee, community work steering committee, and more elected officials sit on that. Mayor Tyra Lukens does sit on that. Councilwoman Nelson does as well. So we can talk to them directly, I suppose, or through these meetings or however we want to do it, to get the message to them to that meeting. But as far as voicing the opinions in the CAC meeting itself, it is going to be fairly minimal impact, just because of the sheer number of people that are in the meeting.
The opinions themselves get kind of lost in the sea, and it would be more advantageous to have, since we've got elected officials that are on the report area or the committee at which we report to, or at least our chair reports to, that's another layer that it could be brought up, one that would be higher than ours.
And I think the choice for us is that we're either going to sort of sit by and just sort of let it run its course, or we're going to say, we really have some ideas here, and we want to be proactive in helping our mayor and Councilmember Nelson and others really put together something that could potentially impact their decision process. Because otherwise it's just always going to come back to, it's going to cost more, the ridership's going to be a little longer, just go away. That we need to have a lot of facts, a lot of information in order to have any true impact on the decision-making process.
Go ahead.
Does it make sense to have a dialogue with the mayor and Councilmember Nelson, who's on that, and understand their perspective?
Well, the City Council already passed a resolution about looking at alternative alignments for the station and the rail. So we already got that on record. If you can wait a few months, you'll have an opportunity to weigh in on the station area planning, the opening day plans, and one of the primary responsibilities of the consultant is to look at alternatives in the town center. So they're going to be looking at that. You can weigh into that. We've had conversations with the project office and the Met Council because our council has said we're not comfortable with that being the only location for the station. And we came up with 3 general areas kind of around that station for them to take a look at. David Lindahl and Janet Jeremiah have been meeting with individual businesses around the area, talking about the possibilities and getting some feedback. So is your comfort level for this area or that area, the other area? What do you think about light rail? So we're gathering business input in the area. So I would say sometime within the next 3 months, you'll be able to have a summary of the business reaction to different locations. You'll have an opportunity to weigh into ideas we've come up with and ideas that the consultant will come up, and then you want to pass that information on to the council as to which one you think makes the most sense for the city.
And who would be making that presentation to us?
It could be the city staff, or it could be the consultant, or a combination.
Okay.
Could you enlighten us as to what these 3 areas might be, that you actually have this concept that they're beneficial?
Actually, what I should do for the next meeting is simply invite David to come in, show you the plans, and talk about the list of businesses that they've talked to so far and what the reaction has been.
Yeah, that would be very appropriate. Thank you.
Okay. If you would make that happen, that would be great.
I'll make the request.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate that. Any continuing business?
No.
Any new business? If not, I'll entertain a motion for adjournment.
Move to adjourn.
Second.
Motion second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Meeting adjourned. Thank you.
Yeah.
It's about time we got Lindahl to do a meeting anyways.
36 minutes.
Just let us stay in the dark until they've got it all. Let us stay in the dark until they've got it all figured out, and then all you have to do is just change the sound.
I'd be a big fan. I'd be a big fan.
U.S. singles charts. The odds of this daughter of a clergyman